Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
All right, welcome back, Peter. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Daily Cash Flow. It's funny when I welcome you to the Daily Cash Flow because it's your show. But
well, I'll take the welcome. Nobody else is welcoming me to anything throughout the course of my day, so I'll take it from you.
Fantastic. How you doing? Anything you want to touch on before we get into it today?
Oh, I am in my typical state of cautious and concerned and optimistic, but scared at the same time right now.
I hear that. That makes
Everything
sense.
all at once. I had a moment last night. I woke up at like 1 a.m. and I couldn't sleep, and I was really stressed out about the state of the world economically and this whole thing with inflation and interest rates. And for some reason, it woke me up last night. It never woke me up before. Last night, it woke me up. And I sat there for like 4 hours and just mulled everything over and couldn't go back to bed. And it consumed me for about 4 hours in the middle of the night. And it doesn't happen often. It's a rare occurrence. But last night, it consumed 4 hours of my life. I went to social media and started going through my feeds. And what's the main topic that came up on every platform was interest rates and inflation. It was unbelievable.
No, it is. It's the talk of the town. I mean, the Journal put out something, I think today, about like why is the recession always 6 months away? And so, it feels like this conversation will be the conversation for the rest of the year. And maybe
do you
next
feel
year.
like we're in a recession right now? Your daily life, spending, living, whatever you do?
Well, personally, I feel affected, but it doesn't feel like a super destructive time for me.
How do you feel affected?
Yeah, groceries are clearly more expensive. There is price differentials that have
especially
changed.
The groceries that you like to buy.
That's true. Yeah, those organic produce has definitely felt the squeeze. But again, that's hard to say what is inflation and what is supply chain oriented with Ukraine and things like that. So it's hard for me to know what is based in, kind of the Jerome Powell economic drivers.
Well, I'm not asking you for your analysis. I'm asking you how it feels to you on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I think I feel a little bit of a squeeze, but if I think about in the abstract what a recession feels like, I don't know that I feel that yet. But I think as we spoke about like a few months ago, in some ways they felt like, the economy crashed already, and there were already kind of markers for things like that early on mid last year. So I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. How do you feel?
Right. I feel like we're in a recession.
Yeah.
I feel like businesses are pulling back, consumers are pulling back. I feel like businesses are spending less on marketing products and services, and research and development budgets have shrunk, and just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's certainly examples of businesses and consumers that haven't pulled back.
Yeah.
But I feel, again, we're talking about that word feel. I feel on my day-to-day basis that I feel like we're in a recession. I feel I used to be cautiously optimistic. Now I'm cautiously defensive and pessimistic, more pessimistic than optimistic. I tread far more lightly. I tread with more thought. I tread more slowly. Not very aggressive right now with anything. And the people I'm with and just who move in my orbits, I just sense the same thing.
Well, and I think that's an important distinction, is the businesses that I see and look, like when I look around, and like certainly my wife, the company she works for, the way in which businesses are behaving is very different. And so that does feel, again, talking about feels like a recession in that sense. So I wonder if there's something there too, and the difference between consumer behavior and business behavior as well.
Well, they're connected because consumer behavior drives what businesses want to do. But I think we're in a recession. I think we're already in it, despite whatever the employment data says, despite whatever the CPI prints, despite what any of this economic data is that we see on the news on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think we're in it, and I think it's going to get a little deeper and worse.
I think that's true.
I think the effects of these rate hikes, we read about the rate hikes, and everybody argues that, and whether or not that's going to cool off inflation or not, and that they're going to get more aggressive in the March meeting. And, people are looking to these rate hikes to tell them what the deal is, but the rate hikes are lagging indicators.
Right.
And they're responding to daily life rather than dictating to us what daily life should be. I think it's going to get deeper. I think as these rates go up, I think the home buying market's going to come to a screeching halt more than we've already experienced.
As you were up kind of pondering all these things last night.
Not sleeping.
Yeah, not sleeping. Was there anything that you feel like is paramount for you and for like everyone in your life to behave in a certain way at this time?
All the same things for me. Cash is king, build up cash. I started thinking about how I can generate cash from existing businesses and any unused property, plant, or equipment. Maybe I can sell it off and get rid of that stuff and build up cash. I started thinking about collections, people that owe us money for different reasons and different businesses, and how we can collect. Thankfully, it's not that much. But, I just started thinking about all of that, and it all came down to the more cash, the better. Yeah. And, that's not news. Obviously, it's not a big lightning strike right there, but
it's something that might not be obvious to some people.
Well, I just keep coming back to it. You asked. Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting there for 4 hours like, and it all came back to cash, capital. Yeah. If you have cash or have access to cash, I think that's going to be the big driver between who feels pain and who doesn't. So I don't worry so much for me. I worry for everybody because not everybody has access to capital and not everybody can get through tough times. When times are great, it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
You can get through your month or your quarter or your year. But when times are tough and your customers aren't buying and your businesses are charging you more and vendors are charging you more, it's just... It's hard unless you have the capital to weather through it. I mean, the biggest things I worry about are like that aren't like selfish internal issues, like my business and my family and my. But the biggest stuff that I worry about are things like the healthcare situation, mental health, education, like these sort of like broader topics that I feel they all need a wholesale revamping, and I just don't know how you get it.
Yeah,
I don't know how you redo the education system, like from top to bottom. I mean, it's just so complicated with different tiers and webs woven together, and it's so complicated. Unions and the public and the private and the charter and the agenda and it's just a mess. Yeah, and I don't know how you redo it, but it needs to be redone.
I know Peter Attia was talking about the healthcare system you mentioned just yesterday. And he's very famous doctor, well-known, very successul. And his son just went to the hospital for, a routine like IV. He needed an IV for something. And, the bill was $6,000, and he kind of went down, itemized it, and was just saying like he, as a doctor, is horrified by how the healthcare system is functioning. And like you said, it's so complicated and there's a lot of pieces to it to kind of rework and retool.
The other side to that coin is that there's millions and millions and millions of people that have jobs that are plugged into that whole thing.
Right.
So that $6,000 bill goes to feed the network of everybody and everything that's attached to that service having been provided. And there's a real industry and a real population of people that depend on that $6,000 bill to be charged in the first place and then to be paid by the customer. And it's a good and bad situation.
Yeah.
If you take away that $6,000 bill, you take away the necessity and the livelihood for a lot of these jobs.
Yeah, and I think whenever we talk about system overhaul, that's the complicated component, is that usually someone is benefiting from the system as it is, the status quo as it is. And so it's just how do you adjust accordingly without overdoing it.
The other thing on my mind is I received something in a message today about how AI can do this voice cloning thing.
I heard about that, yeah.
And people are absconding with the AI technology and cloning the voice of a loved one, and then they're making these disingenuous calls to try and extort money. That stuff freaks me out Because like now I don't know if it's really you that's calling me saying that you're in trouble. Like it could be someone or something else in an attempt to steal or cause harm. That's going to be a horrible thing, and it's going to happen.
Yeah, the deepfake technology is, that's, I think, going to develop, hopefully will develop some interpersonal protocols and behaviors that kind of go into that, because otherwise, we're in deep trouble.
And I see that stuff coming.
Yeah.
I see it coming. If it's not already being used, I see. I mean, my phone already rings 82 times a day from telemarketers and people bullshitting me about loans they want to make and whatever else they want me to do. And, so I just hang up or I don't answer, right? But like, I don't know. Like if I get a call from someone or something, or I don't know, and it's my brother or my wife, or I don't know, like it's a problem.
100%.
So, that's that kind of stuff I've been thinking
Bright
about.
future we have to look forward to.
Oh, man.
Well, and that's actually, that's the first question I wanted to ask you about was Governor Murphy in New Jersey here. Phil Murphy. He wants to make all new cars on sale in New Jersey to be fully electric within the decade.
Yes, he does.
And we talk all the time about how political environments are paramount when it comes to business success and choosing your market that you're going to be involved with. Do you see this as a positive? Do you see it as a negative? What do you think this is going to do for business in the state? Where do you see this coming?
Yeah, these electric vehicles, they're great. And it's obviously the future. And there's obviously a lot of benefit for the technology. The government's invested heavily in it. Private sector's invested heavily in it. The states have invested in it. I mean, everyone's sort of bought in at this point. So now the transition has to occur. That's what Murphy's talking about. Look, I'm a driver of gas engine cars currently. So my wife enjoys the electric vehicles. Yeah. So our family's going through perhaps a bit of a transition. But I'll tell you what. The gas stations in New Jersey are going to have to figure it out. There's going to be less customers pulling into their stations. They're going to have to retrofit for EV. All of that's going to cost money. Bad for the gas stations, but good for the providers of those services and equipment that the gas stations are going to buy from. I was at the new Terminal A parking structure in Newark. Yeah. And this amazing facility that they built with tons and tons of EV parking on all 5 floors of the parking structure. I mean, this is the kind of stuff. I mean, that stuff costs money. They had to buy it from somewhere. That's a government contract. So there's all sorts of industries. It's like the AI discussion we had a couple of weeks ago. We're going to lose so many jobs because of AI, but those jobs, many of them are going to shift over to the companies that are building and programming the AI technology. So there won't be a net loss of jobs. There's just going to be a shift. I think with electric vehicles, it's going to be the same thing. Businesses that are on the grid right now with gas engine vehicles are going to make a transition at some point. They're going to hold on to their gas engine vehicles for as long as they can until maintenance wears them down, until gas prices, make it not feasible anymore. And then they're going to have to buy the EVs. And when they buy the EVs, they're going to have to figure out how to keep them maintained and charged. And that's going to be all new business. So when some business falls away, other business will pop up to fill the gap. The world changes. That's our job as business people and entrepreneurs, is to find where those needs are, where those pockets of demand are, and go in and fill those needs. As
I was reading the article, it reminded me, not in the scope of it, or scale of it, but it reminded me of like the JFK speech of, we're going to go to the moon and we're going to choose to go to the moon. And this idea of declaring something before the infrastructure is ready for it, before the economics are in place. And so obviously in the JFK situation, you say like, oh, well, that was amazing. That was a great decision. But in this case, it's not so easy to see this as a great decision, as this forward thinking thing. Sometimes people say like, oh, well, we don't have the infrastructure yet. I don't know if we're ready for this. And so it's interesting how, only time will tell.
It's the infrastructure. It's the life cycle of the physical equipment itself. Some people think that these EVs, in fact, aren't as green as they claim to be, and allege that the electric vehicles from birth to death in their life cycle actually produce more carbon emissions and use more energy than the manufacturing of a traditional gas vehicle. So, I don't know about those. I mean, I've heard the arguments. I just don't know the facts and the data. I mean, some of it makes sense and some of it doesn't. So who knows? But I know that there's people that have studied that out there. I'd love to hear from you if you know about that. But, some of it sounds like pretty rational thought. Some people say, look, by the time you mine the lithium and package it up safely and ship it to wherever, and then they make it in a factory that's spitting out smoke. I mean, it's the same thing.
Right.
At the end of the day. So, who knows? You mentioned that the infrastructure might not have been ready. It reminded me of crypto. I think that's what happened with crypto. It advanced so quickly, and the legislative and regulatory infrastructure wasn't ready. The consumers weren't ready to actually use it. They wanted to buy it because they saw that it goes up and down and they wanted to make money. But there was no use cases for it at the consumer level.
Yep.
So when you said that about the infrastructure not being ready, it reminded me of the crypto industry. But I think crypto pushes forward, and we're in the cycle that we're in right now with it. And I think that the regulatory environment's trying to get figured out with crypto. I think that they figured it out with electric vehicles, though. I think that from what I can tell, the big gaps for electric vehicles are how the hell can I get more range out of my car, and where can I charge my vehicle? Because those charging stations just aren't everywhere, and the little spare charger that you carry in your trunk that you plug into a regular outlet doesn't really do much for you.
Yep.
You can't really charge your car on the fly. Like, you need something that charges very quickly. So I think when they get the charging technology much more advanced, and you can get a full charge in a matter of minutes as opposed to a matter of hours. Yeah, I think that really changes things, because then people can do long drives and trucking and like all this stuff, like school buses in the morning. I think all of those uses become far more practical with greater charges, faster charges, and more capacity in the battery. So, but I think it's getting there. Yeah. Like, I think we're far enough along that Governor Murphy can say, hey, by 2034, all the cars got to be electric, no more gas. And I think California did the same thing, and I think other states are going to follow.
We only got a few years to go, so we'll see how it goes. Have you heard this thing about customer revenge?
Customer revenge? Is that like a cancel culture thing?
Similar. I actually, now that you mention it, the Wall Street Journal put out an article about customers being dissatisfied with products or services. They did a survey.
That happens every day.
Right, exactly. So in 2020, I think it was 66%, and it rose to 74% in 2023. But the interesting thing came out that 9% of those customers were seeking some sort of revenge for the problem or the lack of service that they
What do you mean revenge? Like, they want to blow up the factory, or they want to kill the CEO, or what are we talking about?
So I think it was a range of reactions, I think, ranging
like
from
a Yelp review that we have that now. So
exactly. So I think it was ranging from a Yelp review to like picketing was maybe like the next step, or like being outside the thing, harassing the owners, that kind of thing. And then obviously you have threats and things like that, which
sounds weird to me,
revenge.
George.
Yeah.
The relationship between the company and the customer, it's a very simple relationship. The customer wants a great product at a good value. They need it to be safe. They need it to be like not explode on them or whatever, right? Yeah. And they just want to buy it and get on with their life and use it.
Yeah.
And the company wants the customer to buy it and send the store another delivery in a few weeks, because they hopefully sell through on the shelves. I mean, it's really that simple. No one wants anything more from anybody else, right? While the company wants to acquire that customer for the long term and probably email them and have them in a database. I mean, there's nothing more the company wants at that point after the sale is made, except to make another sale if and when that opportunity comes. And the customer doesn't want to, they don't want to be in touch with a company. It's such a simple and pure relationship. And as a customer, you have a choice. If you don't like the product or service you're getting, you can just stop buying it. I mean, that's the biggest revenge you can have. Just spend your money elsewhere. Take your business elsewhere. That's the way the free market is intended to operate. Sure, you can leave an online review on a website, or you can go onto social media and make comments or something like that. But beyond that, what are we really talking about? Revenge, like picketing. You're gonna take. You have time to picket. What do you do from on Monday through Friday, and then? Are you picketing? Do you have time? Are you working? Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're part of the new breed of people that is boycotting work. Or maybe with a 4-day work week, you now have 1 day a week to picket a company that you want to get revenge on. But God, people, I don't know. Like, there's such a better use of your time. And if you don't like the product or service, like, send it back, get your refund, try, or whatever. Maybe you did, I don't know. But like, try and unwind your purchase and get your $87.32 back.
Yeah.
And then after that, just move on with your life. The market, here's the thing.
Yeah.
The market will bitch slap a company if it fails to provide a great product at a good value. It will bitch slap that company right across the face, and that company will have to go back to the drawing board, will have to fold up, will have to retool its product, change its pricing, upgrade its customer service department, like whatever. But like, if the product isn't great and the value isn't great, the market's going to tell the company in no uncertain terms that they suck.
Yeah.
So that's how free markets should operate. But this whole like thing I think that you're referring to in this article is like there's this planned, concerted, intentional effort to go beyond that. Like we want to actually hurt the company. We want to cancel them. Or that's my word. You didn't say that, but like we want to threaten them or picket them or cause them some sort of financial harm or public image damage. Right? That's what I'm hearing from you, and it's like I don't know. That's a lot of time and effort to try and do that, and it sounds to me like you got to get a life. No offense to those people that want to hurt companies, but like you got to get a life because I don't know what time you have to do that.
Right.
And just take your business elsewhere. That's the thing you have as a customer in a free market. Take your business elsewhere. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. You don't have to buy that product or service anymore. And that'll be the best message you can send and the most damaging thing you can do to a company that you feel wronged you or ripped you off or whatever. And you could call the Better Business Bureau and you can make complaints to those local news stations that have the consumer protection segments that they run every week on Friday at 4 o'clock or whatever. You know, and you can do stuff like that. But like, what are we really talking about here? Like you want to slash tires on the Amazon trucks?
Yeah, like as a business owner, how do you handle a disgruntled customer, or how do you prevent it in the first place? Like what kind of systems do you put in place to avoid this kind of situation?
One of the first things you learn if you're going to be in business is you can't please everybody all of the time. So you have to have a thick enough skin to know that there's going to be a certain portion of the market that you're not going to attract, a certain portion of the market that you're going to piss off, a certain portion of the market that's going to think your prices are too high, that your product is too low quality. You can't please everybody all the time. It's an amazing thing. For us in our business, we put out the absolute best product in our price point compared to any other option that the consumer has. And 85 to 93% of the people love it. And you get like 7 to 15% of the people that they move on at some point. Like they just move on. They didn't like it. They thought it could have been better. I don't know. To me, if any business can satisfy their market with an 85% satisfaction rate, I think that's a pretty good indicator that you're doing an okay job. You can't please everybody all of the time. I mean, I can think of anecdote after anecdote that we've even talked about some of those here on this show. You know, for example, when we tried to address our market with the comments that we got that there was a lack of parking, people wanted more parking. So we created more parking. And we offered VIP parking for those that wanted to pay for it. They had asked us for it.
Yep.
And then we offered it, and then we got lambasted for it.
Right.
Like, you can't please everybody all the time. How do I prepare for it? I just do the best. I want to be the best at what I do. I want to be excellent. I strive for excellence. And in the pursuit of excellence, I just get strong. I get good. I get lean. And I'm able to deliver a product that most of the market really likes and appreciates and comes back and wants to buy again. That's, it's business 101. So you just got to be tough. You got to know that you're not going to please everybody. There's no way anybody's having 100% satisfaction rate. And look, if you have a 50% satisfaction rate, you can do better.
Yeah.
If you have, below 50, you should probably not be in business. Yeah. And if you're up in the 80s or 90s, I think you're doing pretty good. There's just no way to address humanity with one product or service that meets everybody's expectations. And look, people are just disgruntled anyway. You've got a portion of the populace out there. They're just like anxious and pissed off and disgruntled and not happy. And they're just looking for things in the course of their day to sink their teeth into and just yell and scream and kick and scratch and claw. Yeah. It's an amazing thing from a human behavioral perspective. You can't please everybody all the time. but try to be excellent, strive to be the best in whatever you do, and you're going to please most of the people most of the time. I think that's what you can ask for yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
No, not 100%.
Sorry, 90%.
Most of the people, most of the time.
Yeah, 90%. Yeah. I want to ask you about understanding your asset. And I think this was one of our earlier segments that I couldn't actually find. We didn't do a small piece. I think it was just something we talked about in passing on the podcast. But you mentioned there was during the dot-com boom, there was an investment you had made that you felt like you didn't quite get the expertise of the business, and so that you didn't want to go with that.
Yeah, I was a part owner of a 3D graphics and animation software company. So we provided graphics technology for companies that were putting content on websites and on the internet in various different uses and forms, from emails to actually websites and things like of that nature. It was at the height of the dot-com boom. And I remember seeing all these young people with like no experience. Everybody got hired at these companies, Google, Yahoo, AOL, Amazon, blah, blah, blah.com, right? Everybody, these companies were gobbling up members of the public of all ages, but especially young people. They were getting hired at these big salaries, and they were going on trips, and they could bring a spouse or a significant other and sit in first class. And I was like, wow, there must be a lot of money in this sector. If John Doe, who's 20-nothing years old, is sitting first class and he gets to bring his mom.
Totally.
Like it just seemed very frivolous and frothy.
Yeah.
So I said, I got to go get me some of this. So I became a partner in and made an investment in a 3D graphics and animation software company, a technology based in Paris. And I was flying back and forth to Paris. I mean, that was his own set of because the work culture is different in the United States than it is in Europe, certainly in France. And they already had the 35-hour work week thing. And there's, meeting deadlines. It's impossible. So I was struggling with that, but I was also struggling because I just didn't know shit about 3D graphics and animation technology.
Yeah.
I learned a lot very quickly, but I just didn't know it. It wasn't in my DNA. I couldn't have a meeting with an investor or a potential customer and be 2 steps ahead of them all the time and sort of steer the dialogue until I got the result I wanted. Like I can do that now with companies and with real estate and some other things, but technology, I just didn't have the gravitas. I didn't have the wherewithal, the knowledge, the experience. I didn't have the gravitas. Yeah. And so I wasn't able to get results because I just didn't know what I was talking about. Yeah. Imagine anything, any topic. If you know what you're talking about, you can steer a dialogue and have a really great conversation, and you can make a sale and you can have follow-up and you can create a great feeling within your counterpart and they want more of you. I couldn't do that with this. I didn't have it. I didn't have the depth of knowledge that was necessary to be a leader. When it comes to real estate, very few people can outlead me in a discussion or in the analysis of an investment or operating a building. When it comes to making investments in companies, again, I've got the depth. I've got the depth. I did not have the depth with this technology, 3D graphics and animation technology. I just didn't have it. I was attracted to it because I saw all this money in the sector, all these private equity funds making investments, all the IPOs. I was attracted to it for those reasons. Yeah. And those are the wrong reasons. I didn't really have a passion for the subject or the product. I didn't really have a knowledge base. I wasn't a coder. I wasn't a programmer, any of that stuff. Yeah. So I lacked all of that. Yeah. I mean, how am I going to be effective in that industry without that kind of background?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was curious about is obviously in that situation, there was a fundamental understanding that you required that you didn't have. But is there ever a situation where you can invest wisely in an asset or become involved in managing an asset that you don't have a full understanding of? Are there?
Those are two different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Invest in, yes. You can invest in something if you have someone who's running the show, who's an absolute rock star, who you trust, who's got experience, who's got a background that's relevant, right? You can make an investment there if that opportunity presents itself to you.
Right.
Can you now go in and manage something, manage an investment, manage a deal without the experience? That's a different discussion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think probably not. Yeah. Probably not as effectively as someone else who's got the experience. So how do you get the experience? You got to start small, cut your teeth, and grow into it. Mm-hmm. You know, make your first deal one that you can do yourself without the need for capital partners or other operational partners. Take risk yourself. Develop those muscles and skills yourself. And then you've got something to bring to the table on your second or third or eighth or 20th time. Yep. You know, by the 20th time, you should be pretty darn effective at whatever the thing is.
Yep.
You know? But making an investment is different than stepping in and being a manager of an investment. Yep. You've got fiduciary as a manager. You've got obligation as a manager. You've got performance expectations as a manager. You've got human resource leadership skills that are required from you as a manager. Like all of these things, like if you're just an investor, you don't have any of that.
Right.
You just want to make a good investment with someone that has all those skills and all those boxes checked.
Yeah. So that's the important
completely different things. So I encourage people to invest and to seek out opportunities to invest in, perform a lot of due diligence, invest in the things that you know. But I don't encourage people to just jump into the swimming pool and raise a bunch of money, having never done it before, and buy a company or build a business, having never done it before, without you need to have like a board of experts around you. You need to have a board of advisors, like a panel of people that are very seasoned in the space. Like you got to have all that stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the capital stack. For those that don't know, for our listeners that don't know,
I feel like we spoke about this recently.
We did. Well, I wasn't recent. I didn't talk about it recently. Maybe you did. But we have talked about it on the show before, but it's been a long time and we have new ways of doing things. And so I'd like to revisit it. So for those that don't know, what is the capital stack? How does it work? And are there principles that kind of carry over to other industries, or is this strictly a real estate thing?
All right. So the capital stack in any business or piece of real estate or anything where there's money involved to go acquire it, there's a capital stack. The capital stack refers to both the time and date that money comes into the business. Mm-hmm. It also refers to its proximity to the collateral which secures it. So a first position would be secured by the asset. Mm-hmm. A mezzanine position would come after the first and would have whatever security is left over once the first position gets paid.
Right.
The mezz has a claim, a priority claim to whatever's left after the first position gets paid. And then after that, you've got different levels of capital. It could be equity, it could be debt. Usually the equity's last. Mm-hmm. You know, usually all the debt stacks up first, and then you have the equity that has no claim to collateral, but gets all the upside. Takes most of the risk, gets all the upside. You know, the first position will be a fixed rate of return for that party that provided the first position capital. So it could be a first mortgage on a building at 7%. That 7% is the only thing that lender's entitled to. No more, no less, maybe a couple of points on the way in or out. But if the business blows up and ends up being a massive global success and becomes worth billions and billions of dollars, that secured first position in the capital stack still only gets its 7%. The mezzanine after that still only gets whatever coupon it gets, usually more. In this example, we said the first position got 7. Typically, the mezzanine might get 10 or 12, let's say, right? Maybe a spread of 5 basis points above the secured first position. And then after that, you've got equity and other people might be in there, right? You have to raise money from investors. You want to raise as much as you can from lenders and other sources. So the capital stack refers to the date and time that money comes in, as well as the proximity that money has to being collateralized. So first position, typically secured and collateralized. Mezzanine, typically partially secured and partially collateralized. After the mezz position, there's typically not a whole lot of security there, so you're going to find much higher interest rates, much higher coupon rates. You're going to find convertible notes, convertible security instruments where someone can lend money and then convert to equity and participate in all the big upside, should there be any. Yeah. Maybe that convertible security is going to require personal guarantees from the borrower, from the company, from other sources of collateral that the lender can't get to because it's already tied up by the first and the mezz. So the third guy in is going to say, look, I'm going to charge you 18% and I need a personal guarantee from you, your mom, your daughter, your brother, and your wife. And you can pay me 18% and I'm going to want to convert my note into 1,000 shares of common stock. Mm-hmm. That could be a hypothetical scenario for a third or fourth position capital provider. After that, you've got the equity. The equity doesn't get paid any sort of recurring fixed amount. The equity gets the equity. So whatever the success of the business is, the equity enjoys that. The banks and the lenders who provide the first and the second and the third positions and the mezzanine positions, they just want what they want. They want their fixed amount of coupon. They want a couple of points on the way in and out, and they want to know that they've got security.
I always like to bring this up during tax season, although it's applicable to a lot of different situations, but live off the recurring, invest the bumps.
You're quoting me.
I am indeed quoting you. I love to quote you.
And you like to bring it up during tax season because one of the examples we talk about is people get tax refunds and then they just blow it on a vacation.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I was wondering, has this method of pursuing wealth changed at all for you? Do you stand by it? Yeah. So you stand by it. Yeah.
George, when you ask me if things have changed at all for me, you're talking about basic, fundamental, foundational principles that I've never abandoned, I'll never abandon. And so, no, people should never abandon to live off the recurring and invest the bumps. You have to live off your recurring. We all have a finite amount of income in our lives. Some of us have a lot. Some of us don't have much. Some of us are in the middle. Whatever the money is that we make in our lives, it's our jobs to manage that and invest and spend and design a life that fits with the income that we have.
Yeah.
And for many, many people, there's a recurring amount of income. It could be a twice monthly paycheck. It could be a commission check, like whatever, however you get paid.
Yep.
And then you might have some non-recurring capital events that occur throughout the course of your year or life. You may have the tax return, the tax refund, right? You may get $3,000 or $8,000 back. Invest that. Don't blow it. Like you're living off your regular money. Like that, you should design your life off the regular recurring money that you get. And then when you get a tax refund, don't blow that. Don't go shopping. Don't none of that.
Yeah.
Invest it. That's how you're going to get ahead. That's where you get the money to get ahead. Some people get an inheritance of sorts. Some people don't. Like whatever your situation is, like if you inherit 20 grand from an uncle that loved you and passed away, invest that 20 grand. Mm-hmm. Like if I remember when I had a grandfather that passed away, God bless him, he lived to be like 103. Wow. And he left each of the grandkids $2,500. Like that $2,500 didn't get spent.
Right.
It got invested.
Yeah.
Like these are examples. And look, if inheritance never happens for you, let's move on to some of the other things. Go to your attic or basement, clean out your house. We're a culture and society of hoarders. Clean out your house and eBay and RealReal and whatever else, all the stuff that you have that you've had for years. And, you can find $1,000 or $2,000 in your basement or attic any day of the week, I promise.
Yeah.
Go get rid of that stuff. Invest it. Don't spend it. Invest it. So these are just a few examples. If you have one of these careers where you get a recurring salary plus commission, I would live off the recurring salary and then the commission money that you get or bonus or whatever your deal is, if it's an end of year bonus, invest that. Don't wait to get your bonus to pay down your credit card. Don't wait to get your commission check at the end of the year for your whole year's worth of activity to then go blow it on a Christmas vacation for 2 weeks in St. Bart's. Yeah. Just doesn't make sense to me. Live off the recurring income and invest the bumps. I promise you that's how you're going to get ahead. It's the most simple way I can break it down. Live off the recurring, invest the bumps. Don't spend the bumps. If you spend the bumps, I'm going to come crack you over the head with a frying pan. Don't do it.
Classic.
We all get whatever amount of money we get. It's finite. It's not infinite. So whatever our amount of money is that we get, we have to know how to manage it, live off the recurring, and invest the bumps. I'm
not an animator, but I kind of want to figure out a way to animate you with a frying pan attacking someone, for... You're not, but you usually can figure these things out. I can figure that out. So I'm going to work on that. So a lot of people follow us now because of, this podcast, follow you on social media. I was curious, who do you follow? Who have you been following over the last year? Like, what are like 1 or 3 people that you've been following? And yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's a few. I'm always a fan of Gary Vee. I think he's so interesting. I love that he's from Jersey. I've been a customer of his businesses. I've watched him evolve over the years. I just think he's insightful, and I've never met him. He just seems like a good guy. I know people that know him, and they say he's a good guy. So I like Gary. I like JT Fox, who's a wonderful guy, often misunderstood. I don't misunderstand him. I've got him dialed in and pegged completely to a T. Great guy, and people should follow JT and engage with JT because you learn a lot. We have to find ways to learn in this world and learn about things that really matter. JT was a great relationship for me. I've learned a lot from him. I like following certain like restaurants in public places, the Fijian Islands. Like I follow their Instagram account.
Oh wow!
And I follow there's a chocolatier in Paris. Guy makes like incredible things out of chocolate that are so elaborate. Like they look real. Like you don't know that they're chocolate.
Oh, they're like sculptures almost, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's wild. And I'll have to send you some of the accounts so you can put them up. I follow Sports Center. They put up 50 new posts a day with incredible athletic feats of physical strength and agility. And I love watching that stuff.
I really admire the social media team for SportsCenter because that they took that in a whole different direction on social media that I feel like captured a new audience while retaining the audience that would traditionally want to consume that stuff. So I feel like, as someone who does that, I admire them a lot for that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very prolific. Who do you follow, George?
Who do I follow? So what came to mind when you mentioned the restaurants and that kind of thing, I follow a lot of like a lot of restaurants, a lot of like lifestyle people. So like Mimi Thoresen and her husband Odor Thoresen, I follow. She's a cookbook writer, and her husband Odor does the photos. But they're always like,
does he smell bad?
I don't know.
Does he have a foul odor?
The name does seem to indicate that would be the case.
Dad joke.
But yeah, they live in Turin, and so it's basically just them living glamorous lives, and I follow them. I follow, I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan, and Andrew Huberman, Jocko. Those are all people that kind of like get me motivated and get me in a good, mental state. So I follow them. Those are the ones that come to mind immediately. I
follow my friend Jesse Itzler too. I forgot to mention Jesse. I'm so proud of him. I love him. I love everything he stands for and what he talks about, and just I'm always so happy to see his ugly face when it comes up on my feed.
Yeah, when his ultra was happening this year, I was following that. That was crazy. All right, well, thanks so much, Peter. I appreciate it. That's what I got today.
George, me too. Thanks.
And I'll see you next time.
Okay.